Warning, this podcast may contain reference to abuse of a physical, verbal, or sexual nature. This podcast may also include opinions that people do not agree with. Thank you for listening. And episode 5, we are live.
Episode 5. Who thought we would get this far?
With the new law coming in, I did not.
No, it's always a case of, let's just wait, let's just see. But then again, if it did, let's keep going.
Oh yeah, I'm going until they do decide to try me, for being a spy, ranting on the internet.
Oh god, could you imagine us in the dock, tries as spies? It'd just be like George Smiley and Peter Gwilym.
I would sit there with such good satisfaction on my face of just like turning around to the judge and just being like, you are attempting to charge someone who is pretty much still an adolescent for being a spy simply for screaming his opinion. How do you plead, Judge? Probably scream objection at every word that comes out of the other person's mouth, just to be annoying, because if we're going to jail anyway, I may as well try and rack up a world record-breaking amount of contempt of court.
Oh god, that poor scribe that's just going to be sat there typing away. He's probably not going to know what to do with his life.
I would just turn around to him by about halfway through and just say, you might want to start writing your autobiography because this is going to get weird.
Oh, God, yeah. Just start right there. But no, episode 5. And I believe, as is the chant and the mantra of these episodes when they begin, is literally, where to begin?
Yes. Oh, God, there's so many places. We have Boris's new cabinet watchdog guy. We've got my partner being screamed at in the street for wearing a black and white dress. Oh, which out of all of the wonderful categories that we have laid out in front of us would you like to start?
Oh, God. I hate it. I hate it so much. No, I think, to begin with, let's talk about Boris to get him out of the way. Because we don't want him glowering over us this entire time, because guess what? Mad Slovene vibes from Doctor Who. Pretty sure the way his hair is right now is just to hide the zip on his forehead.
I mean, is it just me, or does he look like the male equivalent of the woman they got in to act the head of Slovene?
Oh, Margaret Blaine. Yeah.
Like, he looks like a really, really alcoholic male version of her.
I know, and that's such a sad thing.
I'm sorry, Margaret.
I know, and you know what? She's such a great actress. I absolutely love her. And you know what? She did that role amazingly. Love Doctor Who. We've actually, me and my other half, we've been binging. And the sort of similarities that come up, it's unreal. But yeah, the corruption, it's just staggering. Like, this man is being paid by a pal of his to watchdog the government. He's not going to watchdog the government.
He's getting paid.
He's getting paid. He's getting probably about a couple of 100,000 to say, oh no, everything's fine. Boris isn't doing anything wrong.
There's no lobbying or systematic racism.
Oh, God. Oh, pain, suffering, fear and loathing. I hate it.
I love that whenever I watch the recording, you can tell the pain noises, the wave on your oh god.
Oh god, yeah. See, this is literally, I have lived long enough to watch my country, the whole of the UK, crash and burn and look like the Titanic. Twice. And there's no lifeboats. There's not even the dignity of the band to sing us our last farewell with its violins. And we're just sat here waiting for the end.
Yeah, it's just, it's the worst bit that we're ticking away to the end and we're being told, no, don't worry, the end will not come. And it's like, don't lie, just give us a date so that we can party the day beforehand.
Basically. It just feels like, with our generation, it just feels like we've grown up so much and watched everything essentially go to shit. And there's a case of, I'm beginning to think that from 25 to 30 years is enough.
Oh, yeah.
30 years is more than enough. And I'm just sat there just going like, don't worry. I have some champagne and pills for the 30th. And I'm sat there like, it's even weird to even be considering that, and obviously making no joke with such a serious thing as suicide. To even think that, it just goes to show that helplessness, because people actually do think this. People actually genuinely think, what's the point?
Well, I mean, we had a friend a few years ago that's a prime example of that. Like, you know, the system just worked against him at every turn. And in the end,
and not just the system, people as well.
And it's really sad when it happens, and it's people are noticing that our generation's suicide rates are much higher than they've ever been. And it comes down to, it's not because of video games, it's not because of LGBT or anything. It comes down to a discontentedness in the way the system works, because it's not designed for us. It's not designed to look after people like us. It's not designed to look after the world. It's designed to look after the rich.
Yeah, and it's also just really sad in a lot of ways that people who go on to commit suicide, their view of the world has just become so bleak. And it's just, and to even ask the question of what is the point, people need to realize that is probably the saddest question that has ever been asked.
It's also probably, like, maybe once upon a time we would have had an answer of, you know, maybe you could go on and do this, you could do that, things will get better. But the problem is that our generation, whenever we're asked that question by people that we know, we can't answer it.
We literally just say we don't know.
Yeah, because we're being promised, like, our generation especially is being promised nothing. Like, we are fighting for equal rights. We are fighting for better pay. We are fighting for, you know, more equal treatment and everything. Like, we are fighting for so much, that helping the environment and that. And we're not even getting, like, we're getting a lot of lip service here and there, but the majority of, not even politicians who, I know this is going to be really bad to say, but they at least have the effort to try and pay us lip service. But people around us, like even neighbors and that, there are people around that just think that, well, why do you guys complain? Why don't you just accept how it is? And it's like, because it's rigged against us.
And it's also like, people ask us why we complain, and the reason why we complain, and the reason why we do this now, is because we were promised a better world. We've not been given that better world.
Yeah.
So in the case of when someone does not make good on the promise, you call them out on that. That's just simple logic. That's just simple decency.
Yeah.
And it is the role of the person who made the promise to say, maybe we promised too much, but we can try to give you something. And they've not done this. As long as they try. Like, my mum, not long after the Charlie Hebdo incident, where a terrorist went into a journalism bureau in Paris and shot up the place and killed, I think it was about 34. I could be wrong, but there was a number of dead. And my mum said, if me and your dad were to have you now, we probably wouldn't.
Yeah,
and it's a sad thing, but it's also a case of, we live in a very staggering before and after sort of thing.
Yeah.
And the before and after event is 9/11.
Yeah.
Because for us, that's the day the world completely changed. That's the day when everyone became suspicious. It's when we started looking over each other's shoulder. It's the day we learned to no longer trust one another.
I mean, it wasn't great for, you know, people of color, LGBT, and that's not really changed.
No.
But it was that point where people started, I don't know, it almost gave people an internal justification for not changing the way they treat people, is what I feel. But then again, you know,
but no,
I'm young as shit, so.
I mean, we all are, but it's also a case of, when you're young, you look at the world with fresh eyes, and the eyes of the young are the eyes of the disillusioned. Like, the older generations can see, oh, this is a marvelous world. Like, we worked so hard for this. And we say, well, yeah, you did. But at the same time, this is our generation and the generations to follow. We're going to look on this world with fresh eyes, and all we see is what is wrong with it.
We see death.
We see death. We see destruction. We see cultural vandalism. We see cultural apartheid. We see apartheid in itself, and we accept it. Like the South African apartheid that ended in the 90s, and now the Jerusalem and Palestinian apartheid. We accept that because it doesn't affect us. But when the small and the weak call out for help, it just seems to be the done thing of just look away.
It's a really hard one as well, because, like, I mean, I personally don't know very much, and I've stayed out of the any opinions in that on the conflict and that over there, because I've got friends on both sides. So I've got both of them being like, this side's wrong, that side's wrong, and, you know, I can't judge which one's more wrong, if either. So, I generally stay out of it. But the thing that occurs to me in that whole situation is it doesn't matter who's wrong. Innocent people are dying. And it's in any situation like that. In my opinion, it doesn't matter. Like, we could even cycle it all the way back to 9/11. It doesn't matter who's in the wrong. People died.
Innocents died. And whether it was... And 9/11, whether it was the attack, whether it was an attack, whether it was rigged, whatever you think, it's the fact that innocent people died, and it then gave the Western world an excuse to then launch an attack against other innocent people.
And it's back and forth. Like, I remember years ago, I used to like scroll through like chat sites and that, like back when 4chan was a thing and Omegle was a thing. And I even remember having some, like, there were recruiters and that on there that were like, why don't we just, bomb the British? And then it's like, they're killing innocent people on our end. Why don't we kill innocent people on their end? And it's that moment of, that makes sense, but that doesn't fix the problem.
No.
All you're doing is making innocent people hate you. It's like, it's like when you look at people like us, like, we, LGBT people, alternative people, people of color, when we fight back, in a way, we're looked at as if all we're doing is hurting people.
We're looked down on.
Yeah, and it's that, why is little Jimmy allowed to run around and, stab someone for wearing a trench coat because that guy in a trench coat might, insert excuse here. And it's like, all you're going to do is almost cause that stereotype, because if you're going around attacking people are eventually going to start fighting back. And when they fight back, they'll fit that stereotype that they're violent. And it's like, again, take Pride, for instance. It started as a riot. And people, like, I know that some of the excuses in that, even nowadays, I hear, like, my stepfather, don't know if you can count him as a stepfather because they're not married, but nonetheless, my, on one of my parents' sides, like, he isn't particularly towards LGBT, which is why I never speak to him. But one of his excuses are, well, they did riots and they were violent, so everything that they do is nullified by that. And it's like, they were violent in response to violence. Are you saying that people aren't allowed, that people should just, lay down and die because you don't like their opinion? No, they're going to fight up and stand, because you sitting there being like, you shouldn't exist because I don't want you to exist, is not a good reason.
No. And like Martin Luther King said, the riot is the language of the unheard.
Yeah.
And take Stonewall, again, as to use that example, and it's also the example I know very well, is the fact of there had been numerous pro-LGBT marches all over the US, even in Britain. Even though being gay was decriminalised in England in 67.
Still very late.
It is. 67, 68, something like that, after the Wolvenden Report was put through. But then there was still the prejudice, and the sad thing is there's probably always going to be that prejudice. But when in America, where it wasn't decriminalised, people were actually seen as like, you were perverted, you were disgusting, you were mentally ill, there was something wrong with you. And it was essentially just a means of fighting back against that thing. It was like, well, no, all we do is love. Yeah. Like, how can there be something wrong with me if all I want to ever do is just love someone? Yeah. It just happens to be someone who you don't expect.
Yeah, I don't understand that. Like, me and my partner have been watching Criminal Minds a lot recently, and there was an episode, and it was like, people basically arguing over whose religion is wrong. And I feel like, obviously, religion is used as an excuse a lot when it comes to LGBT abuse. And honestly, I don't understand why.
Well, that was the thing. Now, this is the example that no one in the church will tell you about, is Jonathan and David. So I believe it was David. He was a king, and he was in love with another man. And they lived very, very closely, and they were in love, and they loved ardently, they loved passionately, and there was nothing wrong with that.
This is like Solomon times, wasn't it? Like Old Testament sort of thing.
Yes.
Right, okay.
It was.
That makes sense.
But this is the example that no one will tell you about. This is the example absolutely no one will tell you. And even then, the Bible in itself doesn't work because it's been rehashed, it's been retranslated, and the original meanings have been lost. Like, it was originally translated into Greek.
That would make sense, yeah.
It does. It was translated from the Greek, And so the thing, I believe it's in, I can't remember its name. No, I can't remember which side.
Yeah.
Obviously, I
So what I feel is that it doesn't matter which stories in that from the Old Testament and that, especially with, I mean, like a majority, like because we live in Christian country, like primarily Christian country, it's a lot of Christianity that's, like, I've never had a Muslim or a Jewish person attack me.
No.
I've had atheist and, Christian attack me a lot. But a regular thing that is really interesting is, so, Muslim, like the Quran and the Torah both preach, peace and just, regular prayer, do charity, be peaceful. Christianity, their entire fundamentalism, their entire core is the idea that a man died so that you could accept people no matter who they are, so that the sins of the Old Testament were wiped clean. So being gay would not be bad, even if it was in the Old Testament, which it's never.
No.
Like, it's I'm gonna, and warning, slur coming up. The term faggot, I have never seen written in the Bible.
No.
So the idea that, Jesus hates faggots. Where in the Bible is that? I have never seen it. I've never seen it in the Quran. I've never seen it in the Torah. That word didn't come about until, the 60s?
Yeah, but see, that was the thing. The interesting thing about that translation of the Bible is the fact of man shall not lie down with man as he lies down with woman, for it is an abomination. That has been misinterpreted. It's been mistranslated as well. It's not man shall not lay down with man as he lays down with woman. It's man shall not lay down with boy.
So, aka pedophilia is bad.
Exactly.
Which, I completely agree with that. But again, even if it wasn't a mistranslation, you were to take man should not lay with man, you would expect a lot more abuse from people who still follow the Old Testament than people who follow a religion that says that, man died so that gays could exist.
But it's also a case of, I'm sorry, but man shall not covet another man's wife is higher up on the list of sins. I believe it's one of the 10 commandments that you shouldn't really do.
And I feel like that is done a whole lot more.
It is.
And a lot more widely accepted.
Yeah.
And again, no shade to any, like, I have plenty of Christian friends and that, and I mean, there's Mother Superior in the town I grew up with that I get along with very well. And that, so it's, I do understand, like, very much the fundamentals of Christianity and that kind of thing. But I don't understand like using religion as an excuse for bigotry. Any religion.
Oh, see, actually, I had this discussion with my gran on Sunday, and she's Catholic. Lovely woman, loveliest woman I've ever known. Literally, give her a hug. She is the sweetest. But she grew up Catholic, and she grew up like in a strict Catholic family, and it was just so surreal. And I talked to her, just things like what the Catholic Church allowed to happen in Ireland with the homes of unmarried mothers, of the children that were murdered and buried like in mass graves, no names, and the fact of these scandals. The church in Ireland has still been protected by the Vatican, and I'm sat there going like, what kind of God would allow that? Like, and I myself, though I'm no believer in the Christian God, I cannot believe in the Christian God, but that doesn't mean I don't believe that there is something out there. I'm very much a polytheistic agnostic. I do believe that if there are things out there, I do believe there's many of them, because it makes more sense. Because look at the Greek 12, like Hades, Zeus, and stuff like
Somnus and
exactly. They all had their specific purpose, and not one of them pretended to be more than human in their avarices, in their appetites, in their capriciousness, in their unreasonableness. Whereas, and the same with the Norse gods, and the same with the Egyptian gods, they never pretended to be more than human.
They were who they were. I
Exactly.
mean, like, a Greek god that I absolutely love, because I mean, one of the series that I'm, animating is based off of him, is Somnus, and Somnus is the god of sleep. It's his job to help Morse, the god of peaceful death. He puts people to sleep so that Morse can take them quietly to Hades, and the both of them live outside the gates of Hades area. And Somnus spends the majority of his existence asleep on a literal sofa. It is described as what we know as a sofa. Somnus spends every day doing that, except for, And he helped Hera molest Zeus. Like, Somnus is not a good guy. He's a literal, look, as long as you let me go back to sleep, I don't give a shit.
Well, none of the Greeks were good people.
Yeah.
They weren't good gods.
But I like that about them because it shows that they're, again, it's not the idea of I know all and I judge all and I am perfect, because no, in my opinion, no true, and again, it's why I don't follow the Abrahamic faith, and I understand why some people do follow the Abrahamic faiths. But I could never, because I don't believe that any one creature that is in charge would ever be benevolent. Because to have that much power, you can't be benevolent.
No.
Jeff Bezos is a prime example.
Basically, well, and again, to use that example, like Christianity, the Abrahamic religions expect you to be on your knees for the rest of your life, thanking whatever creature is out there. And I was like, what kind of God would do that? And just to have him as all beneficent, all wise, all knowing, all loving, and to have this great plan, quotes,
the ineffable plan.
It just means, and for us to not know what that great ineffable plan is, these are red flags. That is the work, and those are the words of a psychopath.
And gaslighting as well. Like,
it is pretty, like,
a toxic relationship.
Yeah, the Abrahamic God, Jehovah, whatever name you call him, or she, or it,
or they, whatever we want to put it under.
Exactly. It's just mind-boggling.
I agree with you. It's why, I mean, I've had this conversation with people in that before, like, you know, Mormons in the street trying to convert me over to their God, and it's why don't you follow my God? And it's your God left me to be abused, beaten, stabbed. Like, I have had a whole lot of stuff, and supposedly your God planned all of that. I would, and it's, you know, I lean much more towards the ancient Irish goddess of death and battle, because at least she's honest. She doesn't care about you until you die, and all her job is to kick you into the afterlife. She doesn't, like, no. That's it. She doesn't pretend to be beneficent. She doesn't pretend to be anything. She ferries you to the afterlife, and that's her entire purpose. Like, but at least she is like, yeah, no, I don't care about what happens to you when you live.
Yeah.
However, God supposedly does, and it's like, why is the accident of my birth enough reason to be punishment? I didn't ask to be born.
Yeah, for the entire idea that every man is born in sin, it's a repugnant one. And the idea that unbaptized children either go to hell or they go to purgatory, that's disgusting. What kind of God would do that? Oh, literally, if hell's anything like Has Been Hotel,
yes,
I'd much rather go.
Vivian Mandera, you're an amazing writer.
I know. And also, can we just discuss? It's exactly the same as what Mark Twain had said in that thing that I'd shown you.
Yes.
If I have to go to heaven by railroad, I shall go direct the other way.
Yes. I just, it's insane. But then we get onto the, you know, the subject of general, like, again, you know, no shade to the faiths and that, but I have been accused countless times, especially by Christian people, for the way that I look. And this is an interesting thing, is, of course, like, you know, as LGBT and that, you get a lot of rap for being LGBT and you get a lot of whatnot. But at the same time, I've noticed that you can't always tell LGBT people by just looking at them. Like, you wouldn't believe it sometimes.
Yeah.
Being a goth, on the other hand, I am a very easy target for religious people to suddenly hate. I've noticed.
Yeah.
And I have had people run up in the street and accost me and, like, say, you know, demand to know why I worship the devil and that. And it's like, for all you know, I could be a, like, fully Catholic person and just enjoy how an A-line trench coat looks on me because it flatters my hips. That is why I wear A-line trench coats. I look fantastic.
Those hips don't lie.
Yeah. And it's, you know, I can't believe it. And then you get, but it's not even just, again, like, you know, we'll get into the, you know, issue of subculture abuse and that. It's not even just religious people. It's people in the street. Like, my partner was walking around and she's part of a fashion movement called Lolita. No relation to the book by
Vladimir Nabokov.
Yeah, that is a horrible book, and seriously, if anyone tries to convince me that's a romance, I will leave the room.
It is in no way a romance. The same way Daphne du Maurier's Rebecca is not a romance. The same way that Gone with the Wind is not a love story.
Exactly.
Most of the stories we know that have been touted as love stories are not actually not love stories. They are not romance.
They're abuse.
They are abuse. But, like Scarlett O'Hara, bitch.
Yeah. But it's but it's a fashion movement that comes over from Japan, and the idea was it's the rejection of femininity only being sexual. The idea is that they don't have to grow up and be a woman so that they can give birth. It's the point of they can stay being whoever the hell they want.
It's a rejection of the masculine construct that femininity has become in Japan. And like we were talking about this last week, actually, when we're talking about Angela Carter, and she had gone to kabuki theatre, and she realised that femininity in Japan was actually, it was male constructed, because the ideal femininity was actually played by
males,
people in drag. Yes, it was played by men in drag, and they only ever betrayed their authentic gender by too great a perfection of performance. So just going like, so it almost felt like a real woman looked butch beside them.
Yeah,
and feminine, when it comes to femininity, it sort of reeks in Britain as well, because the ideal feminism actually has, the ideal femininity was also sort of handed to women and also to queer people and played off as the real thing. And it was done by D.H. Lawrence, the writer of Lady Chatterley's Lover, but it was not in that book. It was actually in a book called Women in Love. And this man, the writer, just revels in bags and beads and feather boas and stockings. Like, stockings, they are such a prominent part of that book. And it's just like, it's almost as if D.H. Lawrence went through his mother's dressing chest and was just pulling out all the clothes and trying them on and looking themselves in the mirror.
Yeah.
And it's just like, the stockings now conceal a very hairy leg. So next to this Onagata, Cassius Clay is essentially Colette. And it's just unreal. But then again, it just feels like this impersonation. It's very difficult to do in fiction, but you also have to be very careful when you do it, so you don't let your inner feminine side sort of slip. And it's also most prominent in people who hate women, especially if you're trying to portray one in a piece of art. And Angela Carter said it in her essay, and it's such a great essay. It's called Lorenzo the Closet Queen, and it was all about D.H. Lawrence. She literally could not leave this man alone, and I loved it. And she said that it brings me to the curious case of D.H. Lawrence and the truism that those who preach phallic superiority usually have an enormous dildo tucked away somewhere in their psychic impedimenta. And I thought it was absolutely hysterical.
In layman's terms, that's anyone that says that, dicks are way better is probably sitting on one. I love that.
I know, it was just so good. And
she's part of this movement, so she wears like very, very like frilly dresses and that kind of thing, and very very kind of bell-bottom silhouette and that sort of thing, and it's really it's cool clothing, but it's the whole idea of the movement is to kind of retake your femininity in I'm not only around for sex sort of thing, which
it's very much really a rejection of the severity of femininity.
And so she was wearing that while in town the other day, and there was this kid about 6 or 7 years old, decides to run up to their mother after getting a look at her and go, and now I say this is the insult of the century, not because it's actually a good insult, but simply because every alternative hears it, or probably every drag queen hears it as well, at least 100 times a year, which is, don't you know it's not Halloween yet? And ran up to this person and just goes, does she know it's not Halloween? And I feel like that is such for the parent as well, to have not either A, apologized to my partner, or B, to have at least said to the kid, that's not very nice. Like to accept that as that's the way that you should treat people that don't dress normal, quote, normal.
It's just frustrating. Like, when I did makeup for the first time and I posted, I looked stunning.
You looked fabulous.
I looked absolutely. I had the wings I had for my eyeliner. Oh my god, you could literally take them off and cut a bitch.
You look like the characters that I drew. Like, those wings were like full comic kind of.
I literally felt like Regina from Once Upon a Time.
See, I'm thinking Sandman's death. When I look at that.
Yes. Yeah. But no, honestly, it gets old so quickly.
It
and I'm sat there
really
just going
does.
like, well, at least I look cuter than you.
I've heard it so many times, and it's just. But it's the worst bit is that people treat you like that. And as again, I'm an alternative male, so I end up with the and I like going on walks and that kind of thing. And the amount of times that I have been attacked, like not even just, I mean, verbally, I get that anywhere. I walk out the street in a trench coat, or maybe I've got a really nice suit jacket that I just throw over anything kind of thing, and it's always, it's just because the main color I wear is black and I have long black hair. It's just instant abuse. And it's always, just screaming at me in the street, calling names, asking do I know it's not Halloween. And it escalates as well, because the amount of times that I have been physically attacked and I have ended up in fights and everything. And like, I always know one's going to kick off because they always immediately go, "Oi, do you think you're a vampire or something?" And I would love to, I've tried sitting down with these people like that and being like, okay, why do you feel a need to attack me? And their answer is always because you deserve it, or because you're weird, or because you might hurt me. And it's like, you're feeding into your own stereotype, because if you're trying to kill me, because again, I've had people try to stab me just for wearing a trench coat. So if you're going to try and kill me, of course I'm going to fit the stereotype of I might hurt you, because you're trying to kill me. Of course I'm going to snap your arm.
See, that was the thing. It happened to me too. Like, I just, like, I was walking home. I just got off the bus. I was followed. And literally just because I looked normal, I wasn't wearing anything that would, like, expose me as queer or anything like that. They just decided to follow me. And they were running after me, and they were screaming, "Faggot, faggot," all the way to my next bus.
I've had that so many times.
I just sat there going like, really?
Yeah.
And last week, Edinburgh, 2 gay men attacked.
Yep.
And I swear to God, I do not want to hear another damn straight person say it's so much better for you.
It's not. Because it's not even just LGBT people that are attacked for it sometimes.
No.
Because it's like you're saying, they're chasing...
It's literally anyone.
Yeah.
Anyone who isn't straight, cis, white, heterosexual, male.
And, well, I mean, even that, and looks like that
Yeah,
as well.
anyone who isn't...
I fit that criteria, and I'm still...
People who do not fit the bill, even in the slightest... You will be got at.
Well, it's I like you said, being chased down the street, being called a faggot. I mean, I'm not even part of the LGBT community. I'm a strong ally, but I'm not part of it. And I get people, just the amount of times that I've walked past and I've had people scream faggot at me, and it's like, 1, you're an asshole, and 2, wrong sexuality.
And you know what? It's even worse because for queer people, every single one of us remember that first time.
Yeah.
Every single one of us remembers someone rolling down their window, throwing something at our feet and screaming fag at us. And like, ask any queer person in the world and they will tell you the exact moment, the first time they ever had that happen. And I can. I was walking home from school, actually. I was about... Jesus. Oh, God, I must have been about 11, 12.
So you weren't even...
I wasn't out. I knew I was gay at the time.
But you weren't... Yeah, it's not like everyone knew it kind of thing.
No. So someone felt the need to roll down their window, throw a crumpled beer can at my feet, and the sound of it, and being autistic, loud sounds...
It suddenly...
It makes me freeze. It skids across the pavement and into the grass, and all I hear is someone screaming, "Faggot!" from the back of the car, and I'm sat there just going like, what?
I've had that so many times. I hear people, it's that, and in Dundee recently with me, because again I walk around in trench coats and that kind of thing, it's been people seem to think that hanging out of their car and smacking me over the back of the head screaming "Heil Hitler" is an appropriate thing to do. And it's like, look, just because my fashion sense happens to somewhat reflect the SS, because it's not my fault that they had trench coats.
I mean, then again, your style doesn't even resemble.
No, it doesn't. Probably, I mean, but everyone wore that back then. British, German, Russian, they all wore big coats and that, because it's freezing up north.
I know. Oh, it's just...
And yeah, but no, I get that a lot, but I can't imagine being a kid and having someone scream faggot at you. And it's not even... It's not even like it. I mean, it's a horrible slur targeted at the LGBT plus, but it's at the same time, it's the fact that they'll just call anyone it as a slur, and it's no different from running up to absolutely anyone in the street and screaming the N-word at them. It's. There's no need for it. There's no, like, why? I would love for these people to give me a good I would be absolutely and, honestly very, very shocked if anyone that fits these criteria has made it this far into episode 5. But if you have, please, just all we want to know is why. Why, like, not because God hates you, or because it's in the Bible, because it's not in the Bible, or because, because you're a freak. I would like a genuine, thought out reason as to why people scream these kinds of things at LGBT, why people attack people of color or alternatives, like why situations like Pulse Nightclub and Sophie Lancaster happen. Like, I want to sit down and for them to actually give me a reason as to why they think this is appropriate, because the amount of times that I've been in therapy for years, and the amount of times that I've heard a therapist go, oh, it's just because they're afraid and they don't understand that. No, I refuse to accept that as a reason, not because it's a stupid reason, but because it's an extremely stupid reason.
It's not even just a reason, it's an excuse.
Yeah, like, they're sitting there being like, they're attacking you because they're scared of what you might do. Then what? So I'm not meant to be afraid of dying? You're not meant to be afraid of getting, shot in a nightclub? People of color aren't meant to be afraid of getting lynched because the people doing it are doing it in response to fear of our existence? No, that is not a good reason.
It is never a good reason.
Like, of course we're going to turn to riots. Of course we're going to turn to screaming. Of course we're going to turn to painting the entire fucking street rainbows or whatever the hell we're going to do artistically. Of course we're going to resort to these, for lack of a better word, extremism. Because we're being told that by not being, if we don't go to extremes, no one's going to listen. No. And then, but the problem is that when we do go to extremes, we're somehow in the wrong for just not wanting to die.
No, we're somehow in the wrong for not surrendering our identity, for not fitting into the flock. Yeah. And I don't want to fit into the flock.
No, again, it's like I've said in episode 1, it would be so easy for me to fit in, unfortunately, my entire attitude and that screams alternative, so it's a little difficult, but I could just cut my hair, dye it blonde, because I've got naturally really dark hair anyway, except for in the summer where it just decides I'm going to do a mix of brown and white, but I could just dye it blonde, cut it, give myself a 2 back and sides kind of thing, and wear, I don't know, some kind of off blue shirt that politicians wear. And I would probably be beat up a whole lot less. But then that kind of thing makes me feel sick.
I mean, it's like, I'm sorry, I can't see you with short hair.
Would you believe that I grew up with a skinhead?
And this is the collective pause that we're going to keep in. This is just my complete disbelief. I didn't know, and I'm pretty sure you looked smashing.
Oh no, I didn't. I looked horrible. This is why I haven't cut my hair in 6 years.
I didn't want to say anything to hurt your feelings, but...
Not even say, I don't think I have had my hair cut any shorter than my shoulders for nearly 15 years.
Oh, God.
The second my stepdad was on the street, my hair was growing. I refused to cut it any shorter.
No. But see, then again, to surrender one's identity is just to admit defeat. But then again, look at the great ways that alternative culture and alternative life has been able to enrich our experience.
Or even save lives. Even without the experience so much, LGBT, people of color, all that kind of thing, have done marvelous things for the world.
Exactly.
And, again, Alan Turing, the women who managed to do the calculations for launching rockets into space, none of them had done anything to hurt anyone.
No.
And yet, they're all punished for it. And, again, people like us, we don't have to do anything to hurt people for people to use the excuse of we might hurt them or we might affect them for them to beat us up. And it's where is the line? Where is the line between where they're allowed to murder us and we're allowed to say no more?
Yeah, for alternative, for people who live alternative lives, for queer people, for people of colour, the goalposts change position constantly. And
it's a hypocritical system for it as well.
It is a very hypocritical system. However, when we deal with such things, we always express it through art. Like Gothic culture, it came from perhaps 3 of the greatest writers that have ever existed. And British.
Yeah.
In every sense.
It is a very British, somewhat German inspiration, but very British.
Definitely, but look at Mary Shelley, who wrote Frankenstein, Gothic masterpiece. Bram Stoker, Dracula, which is probably like the seat of all Gothic thinking and stuff like that.
In a way, but even George Orwell with Dorian Gray.
That was Oscar Wilde.
Wilde, not George Orwell. God damn it.
Orwell did 1984.
Thank you. My brain's currently barbecuing here.
It's all
yes,
right.
No, I've got the book up there. I can see Oscar Wilde from here, and it's like, that says George Orwell. No, it doesn't. But yeah, I mean, it's being a goth. I mean, it's not even just. I mean, you don't even have to be a goth to wear the kinds of clothes that goths wear. I mean, like, anyone can wear a long A-line coat and look fucking fabulous. Yeah. Anyone can have long hair and look amazing.
Yeah. See, I love the gothic aesthetic. Like, I could never do it. Alas.
Trust me, I'm pretty sure my partner could find what fits.
We will see. No, it was just more a case I could never keep up that aesthetic. But however, the gothic aesthetic, it's one that was so got into. Not just now, because then again, it's only become alternative culture now because it's no longer the fad. Because when you got to like the 1800s, 1900s, Gothic was the in thing.
Well, yeah, because Victoria wore the morning dress.
Exactly. We loved Gothic culture. Like, we loved the Penny Dreadfuls.
Yes.
We loved those sorts of things. And it's only now that they've fallen out of fashion. But the people who like want to keep the fashion alive, who love the aesthetic, who love the stories.
We don't need it to be mainstream or anything, and we don't need it to be edgy. We just want to continue a culture.
You just do what you love.
Yeah.
And like, again, the example of Dorian Gray, written by a queer man, a bisexual man, and it's become one of the most potent symbols of the Gothic. And like, you've got like Horace Walpole, you've got Anne Radcliffe, who are like the early examples of Gothic. Exactly. And they inspire us in so many different ways. They inspire feeling. It's also because to express oneself in the Gothic, it's also this not pantomime, but this exaggeration of of feelings, like of romance, of fear, of all these sorts of things, because they are interesting. When you read Gothic fiction, like Dracula especially, it taps into your fear. And but there was always, I would always call that the sort of the pleasing terror. Like, anytime I read the scene where Mina goes searching for Lucy the first time that she sleepwalks, and she's found outside Whitby Abbey reclining on the stone table, and Mina screams, "Lucy, Lucy!" and then there's just this head that pops up, and it's just this white face and the gleaming red eyes. That terrifies me. But that's the thing. The Gothic, it's to exude and extract an emotion. And I think that's also what makes people afraid of alternative culture, especially with goths, is because they extract the emotion, but they're extracting the wrong emotion. It's extracting hate, it's extracting fear. But
that's not the intention.
It's never the intention.
I'm not walking around with long hair, a little bit of guy liner, and a long coat to make people hate me, to make people scared of me, to I'm not walking down the streets, I mean, I walk down the streets in a black suit sometimes, and I look more like death in a suit than I do in a trench coat.
I need to see this. I would love this.
And it's that kind of thing of you, like, it's not that we're aiming to get people scared of us or anything.
No.
They just hate. I don't understand why a lot of them hate, because again, like, I'm a goth simply in look, more than anything, and that, like, it's I love, but I take a lot of culture into what makes me me, and it's just because of the kind of clothing that I fell into liking, which is a very, my partner would put it, because of the designs that she's doing, it's a very utilitarian, very militaristic meets like kind of thief sort of look. So it's big hoods or big coats, and
very Assassin's Creed.
And that's kind of the aesthetic that I've always fallen into, and it kind of, as I grew up, it was, oh, you're a goth, so, I took that as a thing.
Yeah.
But I don't see why that should cause people to be beat up.
Exactly.
Like, it's I mean, my father is always proud of the fact that, he always, and I know he got bullied for this, he always wore a banana yellow raincoat.
All I'm thinking right now is, you Georgie.
Yeah, no, yep.
But no, but see, this is the thing. It's actually really interesting because, again, to bring up one of my favourite writers, Angela Carter, who wrote some fantastic gothic literature, The Bloody Chamber especially.
Yes.
I would throw that book at people if I can. And I'm surprised the Angela Carter estate isn't actually giving me a percentage. The amount of times I've literally said, read The Bloody Chamber, read The Bloody Chamber, read The Bloody fucking Chamber.
This video is not sponsored by Angela Carter.
It isn't. Not yet. But no, it's like, look, to describe Angela Carter, like, and myself, because I've written gothic stories, I write gothic stories. I could dress like a complete hippie and like just have like the really lovely mad hair, look like Professor Trelawney from Harry Potter. That's the aim of the game when I'm a writer. I want to look like Sybil Trelawney. And just write, but she wrote some of the greatest gothic fiction I've ever read in The Bloody Chamber. Like the title story itself, which is a telling of Bluebeard, and it mixes in like the genres of Jane Eyre and Rebecca. And then you've got like The Company of Wolves, which is made in such a fantastic film by Neil Jordan. It's all about werewolves, and like it's the skewed take on Little Red Riding Hood, and this Carter-esque twist on sexual awakening, and it's done so well. It's so dark, but she looked lovely. She was such a sweet lady, and we loved her.
It's that insane thing of like, again, people judge, and it's a thing, people judge on looks and lifestyle, or not even looks and lifestyle, but looks and who your partner is. They judge you more on that than who you are, because I mean, like, again, take my partner. She was wearing black and white striped Lolita, and at the same time, the next day you see her in the street, she will probably either look like, Professor name please.
Trelawney.
Thank you. My brain keeps blanking today. I've not had enough tea. So like she could go down the street looking like Professor Trelawney. She could then the next day be, I mean, she's also part cyber goth. Like she can go down with like full on bright hot pink glow in the dark dreadlocks and like, full on like huge size of my head platforms.
Yeah. And that's the thing.
And she doesn't fit into one style, and yet the second she picks any of her styles, because it's not, I don't know, I don't know what's the in style at the moment, like underwear as a top and tight jeans, I think has been the thing I've seen going around. I couldn't tell you. It looks like it's like women in any case, a lot of them our age have been like, it's lingerie for their top, and then
like a crop top. That's
not even a crop top, like full on they've put lingerie on and just not put a top over it. And then jeans. And it's like, unless she goes out in something like that, she's treated like she's a freak. And it's like, but at the same time, she's not. She's a mathematician. Like, you're sitting there being like,
she's a mathematician, she's a dressmaker, and a fantastic dressmaker at that.
And a baker. And it's like, you sit there and it's like, what kind of, like, people look at me. And I know that a lot of them are probably, like, a lot of the excuses in that, if we're going on the fear excuse, a lot of them probably look at me and they think of the 1990s shooting in America. The one that was blamed on goths simply for the people wearing trench coats. I mean,
blamed Marilyn Manson, did they?
And Aurelio Voltaire. Like, not French Aurelio Voltaire, musician Aurelio Voltaire. Absolutely amazing man. He is an animator of the gods. I love his stop motions, and he is a great musician to go with. Just, seriously, dude.
Yeah, but it's just they blamed them both. And it's okay. And didn't they not respond with saying, we are not responsible for
Aurelio, when like there's a video of him on the news basically saying that that this isn't like going around shooting schools, it's not what goth is. And
it's like, we are not responsible for this.
Yeah, and it's I love that they did that, but I know that when a lot of people look at what I wear, they think of that. They don't think of a dude that makes kids cartoons.
No.
And what if they probably did hear kids cartoons, they're probably sitting there going, oh, you like watching little kids or something, you're the one following the kids around. It's like, no, I sit in my studio all day drawing
and tell stories.
Yeah, just telling stories so that weird kids, or so that kids that are abused or that anything, have a place to escape to until they are in a situation where they can actually get out of the violence. It's I create stories so that people can, I don't know, deal with their horrible lives. Because I used to have a pretty bad childhood.
Yeah, and it's the same with me. I'm a writer because it's a case of if I can help someone, if I can help my audience, even if it's an audience of one, to feel better or to come out of my stories feeling like they can take on life and be stronger and feel prepared, my job will have been done. I will have attained what I've always wanted to do, and that is to tell a story that got people through, because I feel like I owe it to the writers that got me through, like Tolkien, like Angela Carter, Toni Morrison, James Baldwin, and Mary Renault, the writers that got me through lockdown and also got me through a lot of previous issues, like the darker times, like before I came out, or my struggles and stuff like that. Anytime I was feeling so depressed, I felt I couldn't go on, I always picked up a book and I always read, and it was usually something like Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, and such a great book, or Persuasion, again, the same writer. And it, like, these stories, they give you comfort. All form of stories can take you on a journey, and it's easier to explain things through a story than through a textbook.
Yeah, I mean, it's like when I was a kid, like, instead of books, it was animations and that. And like, I have animators like, you know, even Monte Ohm, who, you know, initially taught me the basics, or Hibiki Yoshizaki, who has semi-mentored me recently, Ryohei Huke, like, so many foreign animators and that, and directors have inspired what I do, not because, you know, they've sat there and been like, I will teach you, you will do things by the book, but I mean, even can't remember his name, Yoshitaka Amano, the illustrator for Final Fantasy, and Create Silent Hill, can't remember your name, Hideo Kojima. Like, you know, these game creators, these animators, like with you, with Jane Austen and many other writers, they're people that gave me a world to hide in. And they're people that gave me a world that I could understand. Because again, we sit here on this podcast and like I ask questions like I would love to understand why people do things and that. And there is no motivation for it as far as I know, because no one's ever able to tell me. But I go into a game, I go into a movie, I go into an opera or something, or even into a book, and I know the reasons.
The motive is to tell a story.
Yeah, and it's the bad guy. Like, we'll take Final Fantasy, Sephiroth. One of the most groundbreaking bad guys of like our generation, kind of thing, in the generation before when it comes to games. His motivations were pretty clear. He wanted to take down the corrupt government, and then just kind of slowly went insane and decided that no human deserves to live. It's not a good reason, but it's a reason.
It's a reason.
And it's the same when we take so many other books. Is the antagonist or the villain or even the main character, they have a reason to be themselves, and in a way no one expects them to not be themselves, even if they're the bad guy. Like, no one expects Skeletor to be good.
No.
Like from He-Man, no one expects him to turn around and be like, oh, I did it all the time because I love puppies. No, he was a bad guy that wanted to rule the world. His reason that he wanted to rule the world is he's a narcissistic megalomaniac.
And like, an interesting thing, actually, there was again, I bring up Mary Renault, her book The Persian Boy, which is probably a groundbreaking queer novel. It came out in 1972, and it was told from the perspective of the Persian eunuch Bagoas, and he was the most ardent lover of Alexander the Great. Now, we all know in history that Alexander the Great was a megalomaniac.
He was the idiot that burned down the library, so yeah, we know.
Basically, yeah. But no, the library and stuff like that, yeah, he built all that and then he burned it. But he also did what a lot of people actually didn't expect to do. He actually unified people in Persia, in Greece, in Macedon, of which he was king. He brought them all together. So the the modern aspect of him being a megalomaniac, while it is true, it also doesn't bring into perspective the good that he's done. All he ever did was take land away from rulers. He never took it away from people. He took it away from the rulers, and he allowed life to continue as it is. It was just under a different rule. And Bagoas, who was the Persian eunuch, he was the eunuch to Darius III, I think, who was the reigning ruler of Persia, and before Alexander came and took over. Yeah, but it's more a case of Alexander, you can see him as a villain, you can see him as a megalomaniac, you can see him as whatever, but the thing of it is the fact of the book humanizes him, And that's the thing. People who we perceive as monsters, Stalin, Adolf Hitler, Mussolini, all these people, yes, they were monsters, but at the same time, they were still glaringly human.
Which is a terrifying reflection on us.
And that is a terrifying reflection on us. But it's also the case of Alexander came from a horrific background. Like, his parents hated each other, and they used him as a weapon. And Olympias, his mother, was very predatory. She liked to control him. And Alexander, all he ever wanted was to be loved. He strived to be loved. And that's what happened with Hephaestion. That's what happened with Bagoas. It's what happened with his wives as well, his Greek wife and his Persian wife.
I mean, I'm noticing that's the thing with rulers, is it seems to be a thing of they
strive to be loved.
Well, even, like Vlad Tepes is another example of, he was by all rights and accounts, he was a monster. But at the same time, he was a human monster.
He was a very human monster. And to take away from the legend of Dracula, though he was a monster by modern standards, he is still seen as a folk hero in Romania.
Because he stood up against the Ottomans, and he did some questionable things such as butchering his wife and that. But I mean, for a boy sold to the Ottomans by his own father as a bargaining chip, and then proceeded to be sexually abused for years, the fact he came back to his home country, and then turned around to his abusers and went, "Get the hell out of here," and fought them. Again, you can see why he was seen as a folk hero in some ways. And it's
because he stood up.
Yeah, he was a monster, and he did some horrific things, but he in a way he had his own justification for it.
He did. The same way Alexander had his justifications for it.
I would love to know certain people in that, I mean, honestly, I know that I will never get it, but when it comes to megalomaniac leaders, I want to know why Boris Johnson does what he does.
It's like, if you sat him down in any form of psychiatric couch, I don't even know if we get a coherent response.
Oh, please, I can look at him just now as a director and as a friend of several psychiatrists and that, and look at him and just go, no, you are a massive sufferer of narcissistic personality disorder. He does not care about anyone but himself.
No.
And the thing that baffles me is that people believe that he might care about them and that, and it's like, unfortunately, anyone that covets power, it's that idea of, it's like with Smaug, anyone that covets power just wants more.
Yeah, basically. Well, what was the saying? Absolute power corrupts, and corrupts absolutely.
Yes, and it is terrifying. I mean, it's like my partner was saying the other day, the fact that it's a really bad thing to think, but at the same time, they believe that the world would be a much better person with them in charge. But they know that by that right, that it wouldn't be, because it would be a dictatorship. It would be, it would take, the only way for the world to be the way that they want it to be is to take freedom away. And speaking of freedom taken away, in the last 40 seconds that we have, the new law that would take away the freedom of this podcast and journalism and opinion and speech and whatnot. Now, who knows where that's going to go with this country? And it's like you were saying the other week, I'm a little worried because, during one of the episodes you pointed out James Baldwin, when he moved to France, and he said, "Where can you go?" My partner wants to move out of the country because of all the laws and that are coming in at the moment. And then we've looked and gone, where can we go?
Yeah.
I'm a goth and she's a woman. No matter where we go, it's all the same.
Definitely. It's just like, from what have we escaped? Where would we go?
Yeah, it's still corrupt people in charge and that, no matter where we go. We look at the concentration camps and that going on in China at the moment, and or do I have to say alleged because YouTube might ban us or something? But I mean, it's not alleged if there's proof. I don't know. But the point is that
Denmark seems very sunny and lovely.
Sure, probably has its skeletons, but yeah, I feel like Denmark's probably the safest place.
See, Denmark is also great. Great life, paid a lot. Though it can be very expensive. But then again, I also saw that New Zealand is probably the best place to survive the collapse of society.
I mean, I feel like a remote island would also be a great idea there, but
We are a remote island, and yet we are sinking into the sea.
Britain doesn't count. Just wait for Loch Ness to finish cutting Scotland in half, move to the top half, and watch it float away from all the trouble. That's my plan.
Oh, God, yeah.
I come from a town in the middle of a valley, in the middle of butt-fuck nowhere.
Otherwise known as Fort Washington from, guess what? Twilight.
Definitely. Yep.
Yeah.
Surprise! I sparkle in the sun.
Bella Swan, the girl with the musty soul.
Oh, God. Sapphire, no shade to you, but why? Why did you do this?
Complete shade. Complete shade. Kristen Stewart, lovely woman, absolutely gorgeous.
I've heard mixed things about her.
But no, yeah, Bella Swan, she looks like she's got a musty soul. And it even points out in the second book and in the second film, if your boyfriend moves to another country, how musty are you?
See, my whole thing at the moment is, writers, please, you included, no more alabaster skin. It gives people like me with alabaster skin a really bad name because they're always really bad characters. But you notice that every main character with alabaster skin is always just really, really up themselves.
Oh, God, yeah.
Like,
look at the elves.
See? Gives people like me a bad name. Yes, I probably am a narcissistic, self-obsessed asshole, but that's not the point.
I'm a tiefling, so I'm sat there just going like, oh, butterfly.
Oh God, I've forgotten our D&D campaign. I am an elf.
You're a fucked up elf.
I'm a fucked up elf, yeah.
Literally Phantom of the Opera you are.
I was very much inspired by that, I will admit. But yes, on that note,
we shall bring this to a close.
Yes, although, as I've noticed, our collective pauses seem to give us an extra 5 minutes of wiggle room every episode.
They really do. But then again, so literally everyone, please look after yourselves. Thank you for listening. Wear your masks. Look after each other.
As always.
Keep safe, as always. And just be kind.
Yeah, and if you see anyone in the street that looks like, not that, like, that, you know, if you see anything off, obviously be concerned. But if you look for if you look at someone and you see them just wearing a trench coat and just enjoying their life and that, or
give them a smile.
Yeah.
Just be like, you look smashing.
Yeah, like, or if you see, a couple of guys holding hands walking down the street,
just smile and just be like, Be thankful and be grateful that we love at all.
Yeah.
Because that is the miracle
exactly.
out of all of this.
And to each other as well. Like, just be nice to each other, respect each other. Like, no matter religion, no matter color, no matter sexuality, gender, anything, just everyone deserves just a smile and a nod.
Basically.
Like, no, not the abuse in that. So
No.
again, like, although we know that anyone that is abusing our kind of people and that, probably isn't listening to this, but that means that all of us that are, the oppressed, the pushed down, the kind of people that would likely listen to a podcast where we're screaming about that every week, give each other a nod, give each other a smile, because you deserve it. You deserve to help others, and you deserve to be helped.
Yeah, you deserve love, you deserve respect, you deserve kindness, and all of this, and you deserve art. You deserve all of that. You deserve beauty, and you deserve every ounce of greatness and goodness that comes your way.
You deserve to experience and create art, and that just occurred to me of the little homework that we gave in the episode that came out yesterday.
Indeed.
So that means that on the next time you hear our voices, not this time, the next time after, we hopefully will have seen plenty of wonderful art and creations and stories being made. And we hope that the next episode that we make can be much more happy, because we're hoping it's going to be us talking about how amazing all of this homework was.
Basically, yes. And now, so in order to bring this to a close, all I can say is this. Now, from these garish lights, we vanish now forevermore with a heartfelt, grateful, respectful, and affectionate farewell.